Hi. So we've gone through video 1 of 7, which is the introduction to the PBC toolkit. Now we'll go into the preparation phase of the PBC toolkit. So there's 4 main steps in preparation. First, we want to make sure that we sensitize stakeholders and get buy-in at the different levels we're working at. Put together a core implementation team, or a CIT, which will be responsible for the main implementation and assign roles. Identify and prioritize initial behaviors and sub-behaviors among providers that we want to focus on. And then, of course, arrange the logistics, train the CIT, and choose participants as part of the diagnostic phase. When choosing the core implementation team, we need to make sure that the subject matter is involved in some of the individuals that are part of the CIT, that they really understand. For example, if we're focused on family planning, that you have someone who has technical expertise in family planning. Ensure that the facility in charge agrees with the chosen providers so they will not introduce bias into the CIT. And here's an example of some of the members that could be part of the CIT. Qualitative research, of course, service delivery, SBC, we mentioned provider. And then in fragile settings, you may want to consider including a community leader who represents the community voices and is in line with social accountability approaches of two-way trust dialogue between providers and clients. In addition, you might want to think about including someone who can bring a gender lens or a GBV-focused lens, because these are issues that are underlying a lot of the work we do in fragile settings. So here's some examples of key tasks that need to be completed in the preparation phase. We have to mobilize the participants in health facilities, make sure we have a solid schedule for the diagnostic section, synthesis, and action planning. We have to understand where we're going to conduct it in facilities, who will do it, who will lead the synthesis process, who will lead the brainstorming and the action planning, who liaises with the Ministry of Health, arranges the travel and other logistics, procures the supplies. This is a very hands-on exercise. There are a lot of handouts, and that's what leads to the ultimate solutions and action plan. And it's really fun to work with the handouts as opposed to PowerPoints in our experience in the field. The third step is the identification of priority initial behaviors and sub-behaviors. By doing this, it can be beneficial to the CIT when you go through the diagnostic and program and planning phases with key behaviors that are related to that facility. So this requires looking at secondary data to look at prioritizing those behaviors. Examples could be CAP surveys, exit interviews, other secondary data. We really want to look at behaviors that offer the greatest room for improvement or have the most significant influence on health outcomes, where there may be persistent performance gaps that are not due to non-behavioral issues such as lack of commodities discovered through routine data sources. And we want to have the priorities of the stakeholders. And we also need to keep in mind the scope and expertise of the team. So this prioritizing behavior exercise really lets you to start thinking about those key behaviors you want to focus on. And you can repeat this exercise 2 to 3 times until you have the behaviors and sub-behaviors that you want. So for example, here's a behavior that influences the delivery of quality maternal and newborn health, client or counseling education. That's been identified by the group through secondary data analysis. And that, for example, is your focused behavior. And then you're going to ask yourselves in the CIT, what change or improvement do you want to see? Here, the CIT example is more respectful counseling. So what sub-behaviors or actions lead to that behavior? You'll see here we have examples of greet the client warmly, present information clearly and follow clinical guidelines, etc., including the client to ask questions, and these will become your sub-behaviors. In fragile settings, we also want to consider biased behaviors about GBV survivors and discriminatory practices with GBV survivors of specific age, ethnicity, or gender. All the handouts that are required to complete these exercises will be provided during the training and for use with the CITs. Once the facilities have been selected, the CIT selects specific providers, clients associated with the facility or the catchment area. Now here we have this is a small picture, but in the training you can blow this up, and we have a Toolkit manual that has larger pictures of these too. These are recommended numbers and composition of participants for each stage. So for example, for the diagnostic tools, you'll see that 3 to 4 providers are suggested, a minimum of 2, 2 to 5 district health officers, 3 to 4 clients, and a facility manager or supervisor. In the synthesis phase, that's where the core implementation team is focused, and then the action planning involves the core implementation team, the facility manager, and all those people that were interviewed at the beginning. And that's what really makes it fun, because we're being participatory. During ideation, we're also involving the core implementation team, clients and community members, facility managers and providers. So this is a very participatory process, and I want you to keep that in mind, because the more that we share with our clients, our providers, our health facility in charge, the more involved they will become in this process as well. All right, our last slide for this video. Okay, logistics, pre-testing, and adaptation. This is extremely important. We want to make sure that the tools are technically, culturally, and socially appropriate, that we have a schedule that accounts for delays in arrival or rainy season, or if clients have to go to the field in the morning, accommodating for their schedules, making sure that we have all the interviews confirmed, we have all the supplies that we need. We do advise, based on experience, that the CIT ideally has 4 to 5 days of training, and that involves some didactic, but truly it's hands-on, and there's a lot of role-playing, a lot of practicing. As they say, practice makes perfect. No, we're not all perfect, but practice, practice, practice. And you can reflect with each other during that process to really hone in on your skills. For fragile settings, we would like you to consider adding a values clarification exercise, maybe something similar to one of the tools in CARE's social analysis and action, or other gender transformative tools, so that you can include a gender lens in fragile settings. We're going to wrap up here and move on to the next video.